Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc., your second show of the day. We got to talk about a lot more transfer news. It's not just about Tottenham, but believe it or not, there's a story that's just emerged regarding Tottenham for Yankuba Minteh, Brighton winger. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've got Keller has moved to Brentford to talk about. We've got Bruno Fernandes moving to Saudi. We have possibly Pedro Gonçalves coming in the other direction. Well, coming from Portugal into Manchester United. We have several other stories to get through. Arsenal have just had a £180 million green lit to make 4 transfers this week. It's all kicking off. Never at Tottenham, but it's kicking off everywhere else. And of course, I'm here with my partner in crime, Jonny H3232. How are you, Jonny?
I'm all right. I was watching the Grand Prix earlier. I had to go out quickly to go and sort something out for my son who's going away on his holiday. I come back and all lots of drama, and I missed the whole lot. So I saw with the end. But listen, there's plenty of drama in football that's going on. The window's open today, and they're all out the starting blocks and making deals. Man United have already struck deals. Liverpool have looked like they've done one, and Frimpong looked like Wirtz is going to be done, and Manchester United, despite apparently having no money and having to lay off half their staff, have managed to pull out 63 million to seal Matheus Cunha deal today, which is obviously a fantastic bit of business. But there's loads to look at, and no doubt loads to be coming in the next week or so. If you're just tuning in for the first time just now, please hit the like and subscribe button. We got loads of stuff coming in from all the clubs surrounding here on the screen. Obviously, certain days it'll be more focused on other certain clubs, might not be your own, but if you like football and you enjoy football, this is the place to be.
100%, mate. Well said. Let's start off with this Minteh story, Yankuba Minteh. The main story out regarding it is from Caught Offside, and they're talking about Liverpool and Manchester United are interested in signing Brighton attacker Yankuba Minteh during the summer transfer window. The 20-year-old has done quite well for the Premier League outfit, yada, yada, yada. According to a report from Vijacius, the player will cost around €35 million, £30 million to sign him. Vijacius isn't the links you want to see because they're absolutely rubbish, but this has gone around in a bunch of other places as well. Just to put it out there, it's also on the cards according to Tottenham, according to links here with Tottenham Hotspur, not on this particular article, but he's 20 years old, mate. He is, let me get this tab up instead. He played 32 appearances for Brighton this season, 6 goals, 4 assists.
Yeah.
And he plays off the right and off the left. He's mainly a right winger, but he is a left footer, so he likes to invert. But Brighton have used him in a more defensive role at times, and also when needed off the left hand side. But for sure, I know him of the right hand side. And look, he's been around the block a little bit. He came out of Odense, went to Newcastle, and then there was loans to Feyenoord, and now he finally went to Brighton from Newcastle for £35 million last year, and it looks like €16 million last year. And now, it was sold for €35 million. My bad. Sorry, €35 million. He was sold for to Brighton last summer, and he's now on the move again. The rumours are that he's going for 30 million quid. So apparently, there's not going to be any appreciation or inflation in his market. I'd be surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't see that. Brighton's model is not to buy players for 35 million and sell them on, the year after. What I would say is Minteh, when he came on, it was straight away, I thought to myself, wow, this is a player. And he cooled off, then he's coming back in. So I think, 20 years of age, obviously he's got a lot of developing still to do, but he's very stop-start. So I think 30 million is the most you'll pay, but I can't see, I'll be very surprised if you could prize him out for £30 million from there. I don't know. Danny Welbeck has had injuries. They need strikers, need attackers. Pedro's rumoured to be leaving. Another striker looks like he could be in high demand. I think they'll keep him unless someone brings in a proper big bid for him. But he's an exciting player, but he needs to be more consistent.
Yeah, no, he's certainly someone that has caught the eye this year. You're right. I was just reading off that article that said 30 million quid, but obviously, yeah, you're right about the logic there. It's not going to be something that makes a lot of sense. Why is that overlay in my face? Get out of the way. Let's move the story on, mate. We'll see what happens with that one. Let's move the story forward towards a player that I know, a lot of Tottenham. I know that you've always liked this guy, and also Dave's always talked about him. I'm a big fan of him as well. Came in, Koeman, I'm not sure how you say it, Queeve or whatever his name is.
Calamine. I don't know.
Calamine, I think we'll call him. No idea how you say those Irish names. But Liverpool have agreed a deal in principle to sell Kelleher and a package worth up to £18 million to join Premier League club Brentford. Mate, this is we spoke about this the other day, right? There's a striker merry-go-round market, and there's the goalkeeper merry-go-round market, if I can get the words out. You were talking about Arsenal maybe looking at getting the current sort of stopper at Brentford, and then now maybe with Kelleher going there, Manchester United probably looking for a new goalkeeper as well. Where do you see this story going?
Well, listen, first of all, I've been very impressed with Mark Flecken this season. And if they are losing Mark Flecken to Bayer Leverkusen, they ain't selling him for 15, 16 million. They have to pay proper money for him. Listen, I really like Kelleher. I have done since he deputised the first time he came in as a young keeper for Alisson. I can't remember, I think it was in a cup game. And I just think he's a superb keeper. And when we were looking at Lloris going before we got Vicario, I was very much, this is the keeper. And this is a great move by Brentford, true to form, top keeper, young, and good future ahead of him. So swapping one out for another. And like you said, you would think...
What happens to Flecken?
Flecken goes to Bayer Leverkusen. That's the only reason they're buying Kelleher.
So then Arsenal, because I think we were spinning it the other day, right? Arsenal, you were thinking they're going to move.
But I was wondering whether they would look to bring back Martinez and get rid of, because they've got Nuno, the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper. He's Nottingham Forest. So he's gone back out on loan. So they do need another keeper. And let's be honest, Arsenal have got a history of having two top keepers battling out for positions. They're going to need a keeper. Manchester United need two keepers, let's be honest. I mean, we've discussed this before. And, I can't see Kelleher, with his Liverpool roots going to Manchester United. But, Mark Flecken, for example, would be a massive upgrade, in my opinion, on Onana and his calamitous goalkeeping we've seen of him in the last sort of 18 months. I don't know what you think about that, but he looks like he's going to Germany. Yeah,
I think Flecken's a superb goalkeeper. As soon as he was signed, I ran him through the Y-Scout tool, and I was just immediately impressed with his consistency. He's got good distribution, good communicator, and phenomenal shot stopper. But I always think when goalkeepers are described as great shot stoppers, I'm always like, it's kind of like the baseline of what you want, right? It's what other value can you bring? Like every goalkeeper in the Premier League should be a good shot stopper, because you're at the top end of your game and your job is
goalkeeper, Sean. You're a goalkeeper. Can he kick a ball? Well, okay. Yeah. What's he like saving? I mean, highlight the obvious. He's a great shot stopper. Okay, yeah. Right.
Okay. Good. What else can he do? Can he make a good cup of tea?
We're signing a striker. He's quite good at getting the ball in the net. Right. Okay. That's the main criteria. Yeah. No, yeah. I'm more interested. Obviously, shot stopper should be, basic criteria. For me, it's the extras are, what's he like at crosses, set pieces, commanding his area, ball distribution, and ball at his feet if you're playing out from the back, because we've seen now more and more goalkeepers get injured over the last 18 months. Why? Because more and more teams playing out from the back, which means more and more contact with pressing midfielders and pressing attackers, and foot-on-foot contact. I think we've seen Alisson, Edison, Vicario, Pope. I mean, you can go through them all. How many goalkeepers have been injured this season? Probably one of the highest numbers I can remember for a long, long time, being injured all in one season.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, just to finish off the goalkeeping sort of conversation there, we've got a big story to bring to you guys from Manchester United in a second with regards to Bruno. And we spoke about this yesterday or the day before yesterday on the last show. He's obviously looking likely that he's going to bail out Manchester United with a nice cheeky back scratch from and a belly rub from Saudi Arabia for 100 million. But then what they're going to do with it, they're going to go and buy a player that I have wanted to come to the Premier League for the best part of 3-4 years. I absolutely love this player. He is so good, in my opinion. At least he has been in when I've seen him for in the international space and also for his clubs over in Portugal. And that's Pedro Gonçalves. Now he is injury prone, but he can play off the left, he can play off the right, he can play off the 10, he can play in an 8. He's like the Mr. All-Rounder, Mr. Worldwide. Before we get to that story, though, Johnny, we'll just stay on the Man United theme. You know, Man United clearly are trying to find money from wherever they can to make things work for them this summer. But Andre Onana is a massive weak link for them, isn't he? Like, I think most Man United fans that I speak to are just always going on about the bozo gene in Andre Onana. Again, a good player with the ball at his feet, but maybe he isn't a good shot stopper, or at least he hasn't got the concentration. And so, you know, how do you see Man United moving forward now that Flecken's going to Leverkusen? That was probably a choice for them, wasn't it?
Well, I thought they'd be a lot more prepared than they are, to be honest with you. When you look at Liverpool having signed Mamashvili, you know, months ago, even though he's not coming to this summer, which is why Kelleher is now leaving, because he's no longer going to be, you know, the number 2. And Mamashvili will take over from Alisson, no doubt. But I would have thought that with the terrible mistakes that we've seen from Onana, that Manchester United would have targeted not one, but maybe 2 goalkeepers, because let's be honest, I haven't been impressed with their backup keeper either.
Dear, yeah. He was linked to Tottenham years ago as well.
Yeah, so
get him. You know?
I think, you know, someone of Man United's stature, look, you know, good teams start from the back, and they start with a very good goalkeeper who's commanding his area, and then your good centre-backs and, you know, building from that point. You know, signing Matheus Cunha, who I think his stats are he walks around more than any other striker. I mean, he's a fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but he's a luxury player and he's going to be tracking back. Man United need to start building from the back, and I'm a bit shocked that they haven't already done the goalkeeper bit. But they have lots of assets, Sean, that they could potentially get money back. Kobe Mainoo, Rashford, Jadon Sancho with a deal to potentially go to Chelsea. They got a £25 million obligation to buy, which they look like they're going to trigger. But if they don't, they'll pay Man United £5 million to get out of it. Yeah. But then he'd probably look to go back to Borussia Dortmund, where Man United quite like Gittins, who's a player who I thought would be...
He's a class player, Jamie Gittins. But then, yeah. Is he another one of those Jadon Sanchos, a player that, look, you know, does well in Germany, comes over and then doesn't quite... You know, I'm not sure.
I think Gittins is a very good player. But my point here is, you know, United have assets. You know, are they going to keep Højlund, or are they going to take a knock on Højlund? They did look to try and get Delap, but they couldn't get Delap because they were going to have Delap and Cunha. But I think now, you know, Højlund's really struggled. Will they look to offload him and use some of that money? They're trying to get
how much money are you going to get for Højlund? Like, I think they paid 75 million for him, didn't they?
I mean, this is the problem. You know, who's going to take on, if you want to get rid of Casemiro, whose legs have gone, let's be honest, or going, you know, he's on over 350 grand a week. And who's going to take that on? Who's going to take on Marcus Rashford on 350 grand a week? So I think what you're going to find is, you know, Rashford and potentially Casemiro going out on loan, and Man United still having to fit quite a large part of the bill. Yes, Emil Martinez is Jessica is one that we actually mentioned him the other week. The trouble is, the limitation of that is the fact that Aston Villa desperately need the money.
Correct.
And we think that Saudi Arabia could be coming in for him. The only thing is, Martinez will have one eye on making sure he's in that Argentinian team for this summer's World Cup. And if going to Saudi affects that in any shape, way, or form, I don't think he'll go. So will Aston Villa accept a nominal bid from Man United for him. But he would be an absolutely fantastic fit for Man United, no two ways about it, or any club that he goes to. Let's be honest. Kobe Mainoo's going to go, isn't he? I mean, the likelihood is Kobe Mainoo's going to go.
I just it's football manager it's football manager time, isn't it? Like it's all very well. Like Tottenham have got probably 5 or 6 players that they'd like to see go. I always refer to Richarlison.
Not this money, Sean. Not this money. The thing is, Man United have got assets. I mean, Garnacho is worth big money. Kobe Mainoo is worth good money. I mean, they might need to right now with not qualifying for Champions League and all the debt and all the cutbacks they've had to make. Cunha might have been their first throw of the dice because they were worried he was going to get somewhere else. So they've thrown all their eggs in that basket. Now it's down to trying to sell as many assets and recoup as much money as they can before they can go again in the market.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not, there's like you said, like we've been saying it, right? Like it's one thing to have valuations. It's one thing to have players that might want to go, but if you've got wages, the players are not under any kind of requirement or prejudice to have to, to have to accept lower wages where they go if they're on long contracts. Marcus Rashford's on a long contract. Casemiro's on a long contract. I look around that squad and think, at best, what they can probably do for some of those players is possibly, loans with loan fees and 50% of the wage bill cut. I'm sure. Aston Villa didn't have to. You said it on the last show, right? Aston Villa didn't have to or couldn't activate the clause because they're not in the Champions League next season. So for Marcus Rashford, they had a nice deal sort of figured out, but now that doesn't have to take place. I'd be surprised if they didn't go back in and try and renegotiate it. Maybe Marcus Rashford doesn't want to go there and play Europa League football, but I'm sitting there kind of scratching my head as to go, how are Manchester United going to be able to do it? And to the point that you made about Emi Martinez, they might look at Emi Martinez and really want to go there. But if Saudi Arabia are coming in and bidding 50-60 million pounds to get Aston Villa out of a hole, are Manchester United going to bid that? Now, is the player going to want to go to Saudi Arabia over Manchester United? I would doubt it. I mean, maybe, but he'll probably get a decent chunk of a decent salary at Manchester United. But it comes down to you have to have 3 things that happen in a transfer, right? You have to have the buying club and the selling club agree a negotiation, and you need the player to have the willingness to go. So if Emi Martinez wants to go to United, but Villa want to accept the bid from Saudi Arabia, then you might end up with a catch-22, like a stumbling block. And it's the same thing with Tottenham. Like, I think that Tottenham would probably have made a move for someone like a Liam Delap if they thought that there was a chance of getting rid of someone like Richie. But I feel like Richie sometimes puts his heels in the sand and is a bit, kind of cock blocking the progression a little bit with regards his lack of motivation to move on from Tottenham.
Delap was always going to go, but Delap was always going to go to Chelsea, right, due to his friendship with Reece James. I mean, not everything is reported, and that's a fact. And there are friendships, just the same as Trent has gone to be with his mate Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid. The thing is, C to the fourth. I hear what you're saying. You don't see Martinez going anywhere but Saudi. I hear what you're saying because it helps Villa out massively to get them out the hole because Saudi keeps bailing them out. Don't forget, Aston Villa are at 96% on wages to income. Now, that is not sustainable. Now they're not going to be in the Champions League. But the question is Martinez guaranteed by the Argentinians to be in that squad? He wants to be the number 1 goalkeeper come the World Cup in the summer. And I can tell you categorically, if going to Saudi is going to harm it, he will not go. He will not go. So he'll be better off to dig his heels in and stay at Aston Villa, play in the Europa League, which they must be the favourites to win it, I would have thought, wouldn't you say, Sean, next season, Aston Villa?
To win the Europa League, yeah, I think they will. I think they'll walk it. I'm just looking at the other Argentinian national team goalkeepers. The only one of the others so the names here are Emi Martinez, Franco Armani, who I don't know, Geronimo Rulli, who I don't know.
Beautiful clothing.
Yeah. And Juan Musso, who I also don't know. The only other name here that I do know is Walter Benitez, but I thought he'd retired a long time ago. So
how old's Walter Benitez?
I thought,
late 30s, is it, or is it a different one?
No, Walter Benitez. He's 32. There you go. I thought he was like 37, 38. So yeah, he plays for in the Eredivisie with PSV. There you go. So he's still so maybe there is a threat there to Emi Martinez.
Well, he's the best keeper in the world. Listen, he's won the Golden Glove. You know, he won the best goalkeeper in the Copa America, best goalkeeper in the World Cup. You know, so you know, one would think he could go to Saudi and you know, and keep his place. But is that keeping him at the level he needs to be at by the time you know, he gets to the World Cup? I'm not so sure. But listen, it's game-changing money. It's life-changing money. You know,
generational wealth. Yeah,
he's been around. There was a rumor as well that he could be going back to Arsenal, and I still wouldn't rule that one out.
So where do you see Raya going?
Well, there was rumours again that Raya could be going to one of the top clubs in Spain. You know,
right?
So you know, we don't know. You know,
it's interesting. Let's move that story on then to Bruno Fernandes, mate. We spoke about United. We'll find out. Obviously, we'll bring it to you here on Football Inc. By the way, guys, there's 280 people here. Love to see it. Thanks for your support. If you haven't already, then please smash the subscribe. Hit the like button as well. If you are a Tottenham focused fan and you're interested in more Tottenham specific stuff, and hopefully you've already seen, but if you're not, then Spurs Talk Shows where you can find that. But on Football Inc., we talk about all things, including Tottenham. Mate, let's talk about a bit about this Bruno Fernandes deal. Obviously, there's a story here. Let me see if I can share the screen.
Is it I never get the names right. Hitab.
Yeah, so Bruno Fernandes was seen with current Al Hilal player João Cancelo today.
Cancelo, what a player he used to be.
Oh, João Cancelo is amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a player that someone in the chat, unless you can remind me, Johnny, there was a centre back that was at Manchester City for ages, and he went over to Saudi Arabia. He now wants out. I'm gonna get that story up in a second, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Do you know the guy I'm talking about? Brilliant centre back who wanted to leave. But anyway, before we get, I'll look that up in a second.
This is Al Hilal. Is it Al Hilal? Is that right? Yeah, I think it is Al Hilal.
Bruno. Oh, sorry. Can you just answer me about your new NRW coach?
Are you talking about Juan Laporte?
Yeah, Laporte. Yeah. I'm talking about Laporte. Bob's saying Bob's doing a good job. He's answering some questions, so I'm going to answer his. What was the question that you wanted, Bob? Is Eze going to Bayern or Tottenham? We think he's going to come to Tottenham, don't we, Johnny boy?
Well, I listen. I think it all depends on the coach, but I think Spurs being in the Champions League will be a big draw. Listen, if you looked at a player, a Tottenham player of bygone era, Eze, evokes the sort of Ginola, so that language style, easy player. He should be in a white shirt. But anyway, let's go back to Bruno, please.
Yeah, 100%. So Bruno Fernandes looking like he's going to get 700 grand a week over in Saudi, and Man United are going to get 100 million pounds. Do you think Bruno Fernandes is worth 100 million pounds? I know Henry thinks he's the top 3 number 10s in the world. I don't think he is, but he's a very good player. But
listen, even he can drag Man United out of the mire that they're in. But look, I just want to go back to Spurs, but I remember when we were linked with him and we wouldn't pay the extra 5 million, I was gutted. And then we bought a different Fernandes on the cheap, and he was shocking. Bruno Fernandes is a top player. And, the Saudi League, 100 million is nothing to them. It's huge money for us. And let's be honest, it's absolutely massive money.
Stay there, Johnny. Keep talking 1 second. Sorry, someone's on my door. 1 second.
For Manchester United, because whilst they don't want to lose Bruno Fernandes, I mean, why would they? That £100 million gets them out of a massive financial hole that they're in right now, and goes to contribute towards the other purchases that they need. So whilst losing Bruno will be a massive loss, I think that 100 million could be put to massive use in rebuilding the squad. Second of all, Bruno is on a huge wage, so that would potentially be at least 350,000 off the wage bill. So I can see how it works for all teams, for both teams. and I can see how it works for Bruno. Although Sean and I were thinking if he does go there, we might have to set up a Just Giving page for him to help him through. But I think, look, I think sometimes, you lose a big player and you think that someone like him, taking him out, Manchester United will be in a bigger mess. But actually, it might bring them together. Start the rebuild, new manager.
Look what happened to PSG, mate. Selling Mbappe was the best thing that could have happened to them, right?
So this is what I'm saying. So sometimes, I remember Slot at when he was at Feyenoord, like 2 seasons on a row. He did well and they sold all his best players, but he still managed to produce it again. So you got a new manager. And like you said, Sean, if they use that 100 million to buy your guy, right?
Yeah, let's have a look at him. Look at this guy. Just look at him for a second. He's just absolutely sensational. He's so good. I'll get his FB refs up in a second. He's played 97 games, predominantly for Sporting. He's played a little bit for Malaccial. I don't know who they are, and 1 or 2 games for Wolves at the start of his career. But 97 games and 62 GA off the left for Sporting. As a central midfielder, he scored 52 or GA 52 in 81. As a right winger, 44 in 59. And even as an attacking midfielder, he's got 6 in 23. This guy is just a creative force, mate. I've been desperate to see this guy for so long. If he comes to the Premier League, the only question mark, of course, is does he transition, right? Does he work well? But obviously, he started out at Wolves, right? So
what's
he's not
money, Sean. I mean, look, the interesting thing. Let's see what transfer market value in a minute. I mean, look, the thing is, once you've received the £100 million from Saudi, you're going to be held to ransom, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I think that's why they're trying to get the deal done at the same time.
So that it doesn't... £30 million, I believe, your guy.
Yeah, but he's not. He would cost a lot more than that. But he's getting on. He's 26. He's not getting on. He's getting on a bit in terms of his contract expires in 2 years. So maybe that's part of the conversation.
I apologise on behalf of Sean.
I don't say he's not getting on a bit, is what I meant to say. But I mean, this guy is just sensational. If you look up on let me see if I can find it on FB Refs. FB Refs, Pedro.
For anyone who doesn't know, FB Refs is a great place to go and look at the numbers across all of their play. Sean will bring it up. There you go.
I mean, so this is actually a little bit worse than it used to be, right? This used to be
slow down. Like, let's go through them. All right, look. So the percentiles. Do you want to explain those, Sean?
Yeah, basically, like if you're seeing green bars and that whatever the number is next to the green bar. So in terms of goals, this is compared to all people in the attacking midfielders or wingers spot in the top 5 leagues across Europe. And if you find them that are playing in smaller leagues, then it can be across the top 8 leagues. But generally speaking, so he's in the 96th percentile. So he scores a goal for every 90 minutes. He scores half a goal and he gets nearly half an assist. So basically, he's going to get a goal or an assist every 2 games, and that puts him in the 96th percentile compared to all midfielders or wingers. So the more green bars that you see, the more the hot top end he is. And this guy used to be, like 2 years ago, last year, this guy used to be 95th to 99th percentile for basically everything, apart from like a few bits and pieces. But obviously, this season he's come down a little bit in certain areas.
Progressive carrying is go back down again. Progressive carrying.
Yeah, progressive carry distance. So he's not great in progressive carry distance. He only does 60 meters per 20. But he's someone that this is the sort of thing you're looking for, right? So where is it? Goal creating actions, right? This what he does. He does things that create whatever he does.
Final third is brilliant. Yeah.
Final third is absolutely insane, and he creates goals. He creates action. He does things that lead to goals for his team, either directly through him or through his team. Through live ball passes, through dead balls. He's a dead ball specialist, shot creating actions, take-ons. I think he's just an absolute world-class player who has never had the world-class tag attached to him. Every time I've seen him live in Portugal, and he's just I just think he's brilliant.
And
so
what about the physicality? I mean, look, let's be honest, the Portuguese league is, a lot easier, to play in. than the Premier League. But you know, that I mean, you just saw him put up there. You know, Trincao, Gonzalez, and Goalkeeper. You know, the three of them are absolutely destroying the league. I mean, I'd take all three of them.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of clubs, fans, and a lot of clubs would do the same. But I mean, realistically, you ain't getting him out for less than 50 million, are you?
Yeah, I'd be surprised. And obviously, the sporting chairman is like the Daniel Levy of European football, right? He knows how to structure a deal. He doesn't pick up the phone unless, you know, he's a pain in the ass to deal with. So.
My eyes, Sean. I haven't gone all Stevie Wonder on you. It's just
right, mate. Looks good. Looks good. It's good look. Yeah, I think that chairman's not going to necessarily just lose. I mean, but Sporting like Benfica. I think Benfica have sold like 1.2 billion pounds worth of talent, you know, on their conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And over the last like 10 years, it's something, or not even that, like 8 years. It's wild how they're always willing to do business. They just do it at the right price point, and they know that they've got someone else to come through.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have top recruiters in South America. They come from, you know, Brazil and the likes. You know, they come to Portugal. They acclimatise to more European type of football, speak the same language, and then, you know, bring them off. So, you know, I mean, look, if you get 100 million for him, and we can spend for as long as it's amortised.
Wow, I didn't know it was pure profit right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, wrap up heaven. Interesting to see that. I mean, what would you prioritise now? I mean, if Bruno was to go, I think it's a good deal for the club, and it's just how they spend that money now. Where would you, as a Man United fan, be, you know, targeting really?
I think obviously Rimramrin might go back to his old hunting ground. Sporting have got a load of really good players. I'll bring the Sporting team up in a second, and we can go look through their squad. But it's interesting here from the Sun Sport from Bob. Thanks, Bob, for sharing. Yeah. So Jim Ratcliffe risks a major falling out with Ruben if Man United sell Bruno Fernandes. Like, you know, if you sell Bruno, you've got to replace it. But I think that, you know, Pedro Gonçalves is.
You just reply. You just that's the whole point here. So this story here, what you've just said is a contradiction to that, because Ruben Amorim, as we know, being the Sporting boss, there would definitely be, if he was sat in there and Jim Ratcliffe said, you can have anyone you want from that team, who would you want? You know, if you brought in Goalkeeper, for example, Goalkeeper and
Gonçalves and Trincao, like there's three players right there, isn't there? You know,
exactly.
You know, they've also got Morten Højlund, which is, you know, he's just an absolutely insane midfielder. A midfielder that Tottenham were linked with, sort of gently linked with him, Johnny, about 18 months ago. I think it was January 23.
Where's that Larson play?
Hugo Larsson plays at Frankfurt. He's a wonderful player as well. I'm a massive fan of Hugo Larsson, but Morten Højlund is an incredible. I think Højlund's a better player, if I'm entirely honest. I'm not sure Man United need. I mean, Man United have already got Casemiro. I know he's on his last legs a little bit, but then they've got Manuel Ugarte, who also came from that team. I know they came via PSG, but he was also out in Portugal before then.
I really like him. But I'm wondering, the fact that they tried to sell Delap and they were always signing Cunha, does that mean that really they are open to selling Højlund and bringing in another striker? Because I think they would. I think they would be open to it.
I don't know how, like, because to the point where you've already amortized Bruno Fernandes down to be zero on the FFP. You haven't done that with Højlund at all, have you? Right, like he only signed last year, and he's been £70 million. If that was on a 5-year deal, then you've only amortized that down by 18 million quid or whatever. So like not even that. So it's you know, it's not a it's a big risk, and I don't think you'll get anything like 60 million quid back.
No, you won't. But what I'm trying to say here is that they were 100% trying to sign Delap, right?
Yeah.
So and they already had got Cunha in the bag. So are we to believe that they really were going to go for Cunha? Well, Cunha, funny enough, interestingly, I was looking at Cunha's stats, and most of his goals and most of his stuff has come when he's played as a 10 rather than, you know, as a striker. Although he has played as a striker many, many times, he's played on the wing, and as a 10 is where he's been the most prolific. So I just think,
how have they already amortized off half of the cost when he's only been there Am I wrong? He's been there a year, right? He hasn't been there 2 years, has he?
Lebo, maybe you can tell us. I'm just trying to work out how he stands at 34 million on the book when you only bought him last year.
It was last year, wasn't it? I'm sure it was last summer you bought.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a second.
I'm sure it was last summer you bought. Was he been there 2 years? Has he? He's been there 2 years. Oh, fair enough.
2 years. Sorry, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
2
So
years.
you're right. Sorry, our mistake.
Yeah.
Thanks for correcting us. That's why we like people in the chat keeping us right.
Yeah, this is a healthy chat. I like this chat. You bringing in the facts. We're talking bollocks, and you guys are correcting us.
No, we're not talking bollocks. We're just a year out. That's a year out. But listen, look, that's why this channel's all about is bringing in other fans from all different clubs to come here and chat and keep us informed of anything in their club should we go astray. So thanks for keeping us on that.
So you want they want 40 million quid for Højlund. I mean, again, like. I mean, he was handy at Atalanta, but I remember when Tottenham were linked with him for a minute, and I remember everyone in the Tottenham fan base going, "Oh, he's going to go to United." Daniel Levy, you're doing it again. I remember having arguments with the Daniel brothers that we are Tottenham TV, saying like he ain't that. I don't think he's that good, and I really don't think he'll.
He's young, isn't he? He's young, and
I don't think he'll transition to the Premier League because I just think that the Italian league gives you that extra half a second, and in that certain style of football that they were playing at the time. He was on a back. He was like a kind of front foot. Yeah, there was a space behind most of the time. The way that Atalanta played, and it suited him. But at United with that, and in the Premier League just generally, I was just like, it just didn't make sense. A little bit the same with that Xerxes as well. To be honest, I didn't think that Xerxes was a big fella, really sort of strapping guy with quick feet. But again, I was just like, I don't know if they're ready for the Premier League just yet. You know, everyone sort of runs before they can walk a little bit with some of these Italian or
Xerxes kids mobile. Xerxes, listen, at least Xerxes mobile. I just think that they need I think, you know, having Cunha there with that magic wand of a foot. I mean, he's just such a fantastic player to watch. He's real, a real top. He's going to be a top United player. I think the fans are going to love him. But I just think you need. If he's putting those balls in and the ability to break the lines, a top striker, I think would really take United up a level, especially when they've got no European football this season. I just think get rid of him, bring in someone else. There's quite a lot of strikers, and, Man United is still a massive draw, even though, they've got all the troubles and, with what's going on now with Ratcliffe's cost cutting, you've got João Pedro, you've got Victor Osimhen, you've got Victor Gyökeres. I mean, there's just so many.
Do you think Gyökeres goes to United with United in the current, no disrespect to United fans, but you guys are a little bit in the mud like Tottenham would have been had we lost to you guys?
Look, whatever you want to say, United are still Man United. Yes, they're in the shit right now.
It's momentary though, right?
Ruben Amorim, Amorim will be a draw. I do think, with his connections at Sporting, I think he needs to be given time to and be given the squad that he needs. It was a massive mistake by Jim Ratcliffe to give Ten Hag that extra time, a bit like how so many Spurs fans wanted to give Ange the time because of winning the Europa League. I think it would be a big mistake to give him a transfer budget until November, and that's the mistake that Man United made, giving him a transfer budget and allowing him to stay. And poor old Amorim's come in, and he's having to put square pegs in round holes and trying to make the best of a bad lot. So I think United could surprise a few people this next season if they manage to get rid of some of the players they want to, bring in the money, and then repurchase some of the players that will suit his system, three at the back.
Yeah, I think Dorgu was a really smart signing for United. I think he'll grow into it. Be interesting.
Amad's going
to be quality. Yeah, he's a really good player. It's just how you sort of feel. I think you need a centre back, and I wanted to bring up this story because I mentioned it a minute ago. Aymeric Laporte. I know he probably wouldn't go to United because of his City connections, but this story is quite fascinating. So he joined Al Nassr from City for 23.5 million a couple of years ago, and he already wants to tear up his contract. He's obviously had enough, and he reportedly will imminently terminate his contract with the Riyadh-based outfit ahead of a switch to League One. Maybe Bruno Fernandes should have a conversation with him to find out what life is like in Riyadh. But According to French outlet BFM Marseille, Laporte is expected to complete a move to De Zerbi's Marseille. It's an interesting one because De Zerbi finished the season second place, but 28 points, I think it was, off of PSG. Last year, Marseille finished 8th, right? But Marseille are traditionally a team that's up there or thereabouts. The year before, I'm pretty sure it was Will Still at Lens who took PSG to the last game of the season. They finished 1 point behind them in the end. So I don't know whether or not Marseille is like punching again to be back up and finishing second. I don't follow it that closely to know, how good of a job De Zerbi's done there.
I think De Zerbi's done a very good job there. And let's be honest, right? The PSG team that we were talking about when Will Still was taking the challenge is miles removed, as we saw last night, from Luis Enrique's team. That absolutely
PSG are just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's interesting. They started so badly, and that's what I love about this format. Go slightly off topic. There was a lot of people at the beginning said, "Oh, I don't like this new format of the Champions League." I said personally, I absolutely love it, and we could see that by the fact that PSG and Manchester City both had to go to the final game.
Yeah.
To guarantee qualifying for the next phase, and even then they had to play an extra game in the knockout. So
same with Real Madrid, wasn't it? I mean, they didn't make the top 8 either.
So what I'm saying is, they didn't start great, but look, PSG were just incredible how he's got them playing there. So I don't think that gap. Marseille, as you said, have come from 8th place up into 2nd, and I think they'll strengthen. They took in Højbjerg, who will complete his deal from Tottenham to Marseille for around about 21 million euros.
That's good business, that though. I think for Tottenham, 21 million euros, not bad.
Business all round. I think it's good business all round.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Just because the theme of the show is Manchester United, and we clearly have quite a lot of United fans in, and I appreciate that, guys. We're just. Obviously, we've been around the block on the Tottenham space for a while, but we are trying to branch out into other things. So I appreciate you're stepping in. If you don't mind, hit the subscribe and hit the like button. But I do want to just sort of continue this for the last we've still got 20 minutes to go. But Man United, mate, their centre back issues. I mean, they had to rely on Johnny Evans a lot over the last sort of 12 months ago. And I think he did an okay job, to be honest. I mean, not a great job, but I think he was, a surprisingly unembarrassing effort from him, and obviously Harry Maguire as well. And they got the little what do Man United fans call the feisty Argentinian who's he's like 5'8", but he can still be a centre back.
I love him. I love that type. To be honest with you, I love that type of player. The nasty edge, throwback to when you used to watch the World Cup back in the day, and you would have some nasty little South American elbowing you when the referee was gone, or a little bit of afters. I like that. I mean, I've got to say, I think Amorim did a brilliant job with Harry Maguire, to be honest with you. Throwing him on as a striker at times to get back. I mean, who can forget that comeback against Lyon? It's probably, would you say it's probably one of your highlights of the season, the most exciting game of the season?
The Lyon game, it was phenomenal, mate. It was just just after the Tottenham game. I was down the pub.
I was walking through the forest in Frankfurt when I was listening on the radio, and I was thinking, oh my God, United are out. And then, no, they're not. 2 goals in the 90s.
Mad finish. And Harry Maguire, look, say what you want. A lot of people give him a hard time, but that guy has taken more shit from fans up and down the country than I think any other English player has for the last 5 or 6 years. And yet he's a champion chin on him and a champion forehead, obviously. But he can still get up there and mix it. And he always pops up with a crucial goal in the last minute, makeshift second striker at times. I just wonder whether or not Man United, again, I think there's just this kind of narrative that keeps seeping into my thought processes here, Johnny, that some of these clubs are either prioritizing certain things in the wrong order if they're limited by money, or maybe they're also going the early crow and just doing business early because they want to get it done and they want to get ahead of the competition. But sometimes there's patience is a virtue in some circumstances. And I think that might be the case with a striker option. I think some of the teams that might be looking for a striker, they might end up with more options than they think they would if they wait a little bit. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but that's what I'm just contemplating. But with the centre-back issue, I think United, I think that they're kind of going up. They're going after the area of their pitch, like with Cunha, and now they're looking for another striker and Ganache. And if they're getting rid of Fernandes and they're bringing in Gonçalves, all fantastic. But to me, they're major problems, I think, in the goalkeeping space, which you've already spoken about. And I think they need a better centre-back. And I was just looking at, what are the options that Man United are looking at right now? And, I'm seeing names like Inacio. I think he's at Benfica, isn't he, Inacio? Who's a top talent for sure.
Well,
and Imandi's another one from Sporting. We were just talking about him a second ago. Sorry, Johnny.
They've got some good play. I mean, Yoro unfortunately got injured, but he looks a real top player. I mean, I really rate him. And, they did miss the lit. I mean,
De Ligt's had a good resurgence. I just wonder whether or not, do you think that Jared Branthwaite could end up at Manchester United? I think Jared Branthwaite kind of screams like a Man United player to me.
I mean, long term, that'd be great. Whether or not they can get him out of Everton, moving into the new stadium, they don't want to be selling their big stars, so to speak. But listen, Man United are Man United and will always be Man United. And it goes through cycles, and they're just going through a bad cycle at the moment. But I don't think it'll be long before they're back where they should be, and where I want them to be. Even though I'm not a Man United fan, you want the best teams or traditional best teams to be up there fighting. You're 100% right, Ed. They need legs in the midfield. Casemiro, forget it. And
so Pape Sarr for 30 million?
No, mate. Listen, they need that in the middle of the park. I mean, it's ridiculous. But the trouble is, when he's on, 350, 400 grand a week, it's hard to get rid of him. What other stories you got there, Shawnee?
Well, I think there's just, the stories about. Sorry, mate. I was going
to say probably the biggest one out there today is at our club, probably, and that's the news that Ange Postecoglou, that Daniel Levy is about to press the button and eject Ange Postecoglou out of his job. And let's be honest, that final, as a Spurs fan, I loved that final. I met a lot of United fans, had great banter before the game. But let's be honest, man. I mean, honestly, 115 passes in 95 minutes. 61% pass completion, 27% possession, and one shot on target, if you could call it a shot, right? Ain't fooling nobody. It's not fooling nobody, right? I think as much as I admire Ruben Amorim, I think he made a mistake not starting Garnacho from the start. But listen, Ange Postecoglou, thank you very much for delivering the trophy that you said you were going to do, but it didn't take a lot of effort, and I think he has to go. You can't have 22 defeats. A lot of people, Sean, have said, well, what about Amorim? Shouldn't Amorim be fired then because he had an equally bad season? And my argument is no, because he's come in midway through a season and those are the players he's got. Whereas Ange Postecoglou has had 4 transfer windows, spent £350 million, and, he's making excuses and saying he gave up the season in the Premier League in January. Unforgivable.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I think that, I think everyone who's watching this as a Tottenham fan knows how we both feel the same way. For me, it just comes down to, as I said before, I'm not Ange out unconditionally. I think that there has to be an option on the table that in the managerial spot that I have full confidence in and a lot of conviction. I think a lot of the Tottenham fans that are Ange in don't have conviction really in Ange Postecoglou. They're just on this they're riding the crest of a wave where they're emotionally attached because he gave us the best night ever, and that's fine. But ultimately, you need to rely on the board here to be, working with their head, not their heart. And I worry a little bit about why it is that it's taken so long for this decision to be made. And I am concerned that Daniel Levy's getting sucked into the emotional argument as well, mate. And I think that, all that stuff to one side, your league is your bread and butter, and Ange Postecoglou whether he claims he deprioritized it or otherwise, at the end of the day, the league form over the last, absent the first 10 games, and the first 10 games, I'm not going to dismiss them as irrelevant, but I think that they were just an anomaly because nobody had figured out Ange ball yet. But as soon as it was figured out, it was downhill. So, in Europe, you maybe have that kind of that benefit as well, that maybe more teams in Europe haven't had the chance to figure out Ange ball, but the Premier League certainly has. So I would love to see a new guy come in. It's just, where do you go and what is the right answer? And for me, currently Thomas Frank, I think, is the bookie's favourite, and I'm not that inspired by Thomas Frank. I know you feel differently to me. If someone was to say to me Xavi, or if it's Glasner, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. Let's get it done. But with Thomas Frank, it's given me pause for thought, and I'm not entirely sure that it's not without risk. And whether the juice is worth the squeeze with Thomas Frank, I'm not entirely sold, but I'll be okay with whatever decision the club makes.
Can I ask if you're in there now, if you bang in the chat, interesting to see if you just put in what club you're from, just to see. We're just randomly, whatever club you're from, if you just pop it in the chat so we can have a look, because we're just trying to get a feed. Obviously,
also when you're doing that, also add whether you think that Tottenham should, not for your club's best interest, but for our club's best interest, what you think about Ange. Do you think, if you were a Tottenham fan, would you want Ange to be manager still? Love to know that, because the fan base in Tottenham is completely split on it.
Yeah, but I'd really like to find out where our audience are from, because we're obviously trying to attract now we're doing football in general. Football is going to encompass all clubs, all things football, whether it's be VAR controversy, finance, and some of the shenanigans that are going on, whether it be Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Spurs, Ange in. Okay.
United, sack Ange, Tottenham, Ange out, Spurs, Ange out, Villa.
Hell no.
Hell no, says Steve. Spurs, Frank out, says Spurs King. Mate, I just wanted to sort of throw this question back at you. We spoke about Tottenham, about the Ange thing a lot. There's, I was saying to you earlier about this kind of the merry-go-round for the striker thing. So there's a story out from the Mirror that reflects on. We were talking about who are the clubs that need strikers and who are and what are the strikers that are still to find new homes.
Yeah.
Barcelona have said that Goalkeeper is a great striker. This is what Deco has said, right? He's confirmed that Barcelona are not attempting to sign a prolific striker this summer. He said that Goalkeeper is a great striker who did excellent things at Sporting, but we're currently not looking for that position. Another club that's a kind of monster in the competition market that is stepped away and leaving the door open for a team like United, a team like Tottenham, a team like Arsenal or Newcastle or whoever else to make a move. I really do think that there's going to be an interesting summer where I think for the first time in years, there's almost as much supply for top striker talent as there is demand.
Well, you've got João Pedro, you've got Victor Osimhen, you've got Sesko, you've got Goalkeeper, but I wouldn't pay much attention to Barcelona right now. They can say that they're not looking, but let's be honest, they've sold, 300,000 seats with a 100,000 seater stadium. They've sold 75% of their future. I mean, they're coming up with all sorts of numbers to, again, manipulate the finances. And, they are the iconic base of Catalan football. And just like Real Madrid, can somehow financially get themselves out of the shit, so can Barcelona. And I just think that they are cash strapped right now, having sold off everything by the kitchen sink. So, I wouldn't put much into that. But listen, what Hansi Flick has done there with Rafinha moving in from outside out wide, where Xavi couldn't get a tune out of him. Hansi Flick's moved him more into central and he's looked unbelievable. And with Lamau playing the way he is. And, I think it was a shame that we never saw in that final, the final that everyone deserved, which was Barcelona versus PSG. Unfortunately, in that game against Inter Milan, Barcelona were missing 4 of their main defenders and no Lewandowski, because I think had any of those been fit, I think it was only been one team in it. It was a great game last night. I mean, what did you think? I mean, Desiree Doué, you and I banging on about Desiree Doué over a year ago about how we'd love to see him come to Spurs. I mean, how delusional were we to even think that? Well, listen, we mentioned him because we thought he was just so good, and we have been proved right.
I mean, I never really. I only watched him. I only looked into him when the links to Tottenham emerged. I wasn't aware of him before the Tottenham links emerged I think it was last year or 18 months ago. And then I ran him through the Y Scout tool, and I just fell in love. But I haven't. I'm not gonna sit here and say I was aware of him before those links were coming. But obviously, he stayed where he was, and we went a different direction. But yeah, once I saw him and I went and zoned in on the Y Scout, I was like, this guy looks quality. And he's gone on and done brilliant things, and he will be. I think he'll be a top. He already is, but I think he'll continue to go, and his name will be on everybody's lips for years to come. So,
what about So, with the emergence of Desiree Doué, right, it's sort of put Barcola's nose out of joint a bit, and we've seen rumours that Barcola could be on the move. Is that a player that, again, a Manchester United or a Liverpool could go for? Because let's be honest, right? Although he overplayed it a bit last night and should have buried one, it's another top
player. And I don't think he links to Tottenham as well. I don't think he'll come to Tottenham. No. But I think it'll be interesting to see if he does leave. I'd be surprised if he came to the Premier League. But if he does, I could almost see him going over to Italy, if I'm honest, or maybe to Spain. But if he does come, then it'll be a great player to watch. He's brilliant on the eye. He's electric, and he's like you say, he missed a sitter last night, but it didn't matter in the end. I think he was probably just blown away. Mate, I want to just quickly draw your attention to this one. This is a story from Football London about Chelsea that apparently have got 210 million pounds worth of talent that's going to be greenlit. They've already spent 30 on.
Sure, don't make me say his name again. Eki Teti. Eki. If you're new in here, right, he keeps bringing them up on purpose. I'm sure.
Go and learn your pronunciations, Johnny. That's a good boy. Eki Teki's one of them. Also, Mark Gay, he's on the list. They're looking for a new centre back. Jamie Gittins, Nico Williams, and Alejandro Garnacho were players that they were looking at in January, but nothing got over the line. I mean, like you say, Hugo Ekitike, right? And I just sit there and kind of go, they're going to have to sell a hell of a lot of players to be able to. Surely they can't continue to find loopholes in the FFP. They can't sell their dressing room to the to something like to the other dressing room, like the home dressing room to the away dressing room, and loan it back.
There, Sean, because maybe people don't know, but Chelsea, to get around FFP, they sold a hotel to themselves that they had.
They've got investments in their women's team as well, right? It's just it's bonkers how many loopholes they found. But it really isn't really, because when you actually look at the laws and the rules, I mean, even the ownership rules. We spoke about this the other day, Johnny. It's madness. Serena Williams' husband bought an 8% stake in their women's team which valued it at, I think, £20 million for 8%, which values them at 245 million, which comes 9 months after they sold the club to their Blueco investment vehicle that essentially was just moving around numbers on a piece of paper. Now West Ham are looking to do the same, and ultimately, West Ham's Trzcinski, I think his name is, who is going to buy out the Gold family stake.
Is he Czech? No,
I'm not sure where he's from, but he's got his stake that might be sold to this guy called Trip Smith, right? And Trip Smith is a guy who's eventually going to own 60% of West Ham, which will give him voting rights over Sullivan who has 40%. And then this guy, Trip Smith, is already in bed with the investment vehicle that also ultimately owns a large stake in Crystal Palace with David Blitzer from Blackstone Group, right? And then on top of that, this guy, Trip Smith, is also a 9% owner of Blueco. And I just find it insane that the laws are very clear that if you own one Premier League football club directly, you can't have a stake in another unless you do it via an investment vehicle that doesn't directly own the stake, and then you can. We see it with Newcastle and Chelsea, with Clear Lake Capital. Now you're seeing it with West Ham and this guy Trip Smith, and he's going to essentially have fingers in the Crystal Palace pie and the Chelsea pie, whilst also being majority owner of West Ham. You know what's going to happen next is the next time that there's a tightening of the laws around FFP or PSR, where you currently have 5 teams that already vote against, 4 that vote against directly, 1 that abstains in Chelsea. You only need to have 7 people that essentially don't vote in favour of any changes, and then no more changes happen. And if West Ham and Palace become the next 2, just because they've all got their fingers in the pie and they all scratch each other's backs, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, then essentially, like, the FFP is finished in regards creating a level playing field. And I'm not saying that from a sort of bitter, jealous Tottenham fan because Daniel Levy is the poster boy. I'm saying it because I think that the Premier League is boring at times with regards the fact that the top 3 teams or the top 4 or 5 teams are always up there, and the 3 teams that come up go straight back down again. There's no relegation jeopardy. The whole thing to me is just it's silly, and it's only going to get worse when these ownership rules are so loose and vacant of any kind of consistent coherency. It's crazy to me.
I mean, Daniel Levy, I mean, he's almost like, with great respect, pissing in the pouring rain, because, you know, he's trying to hold the umbrella up to all that's going on, and he's on his own, mate, because everyone else is breaking the rules. And as we've said, you know, Saudi PIF owns Newcastle, yet they are one of the biggest investors in Clear Lake Capital who own Chelsea. It's all incestuous. You know, it's not a surprise, for example, that Aston Villa's owner, their Egyptian owner, has a fantastic relationship with the Saudis, and John Duran just mysteriously manages to get sold for 75 million to the Saudis to help them over the FFP line. And then Aston Villa do a deal with Chelsea where they swap players that have not worth 2 bob for, I think it was 25 million, wasn't it?
I think it was who were the teams that did it? I think Chelsea. There's 4 teams that were involved. I can't remember the specifics, but Everton were one of the teams. Chelsea were another. Aston Villa were a third. I don't think it was Newcastle. I think it was.
No, it wasn't Newcastle.
I'm not sure who the 4th one was, but yeah, essentially they sold a youth player to each other
that weren't worth anything like that money.
Yeah, and in so doing, you can amortize you can amortize the purchase over the length of the contract, but you get to receive the sale entirely on your book, so you can spend that money immediately. It's the biggest wiggle room, and like, you know, Johnny and I, we both called it out before it happened, and then 3 days later it happened, didn't it? You know, it was.
We've been calling it out, Sean, since the last 18 months, and nothing's changed. It's like robbery going on in broad daylight, and everyone's watching it. And you know, the Premier League have spent tens of millions of pounds, right, fighting its own members. It's absolutely laughable.
Yeah, I think it was Forest. I think it was Forest. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right there, Slim. Yeah,
Forest.
Yeah, it just annoys me that the people look like, you know, Tottenham fans that hate Daniel Levy always attack me because I don't, you know, subscribe to this notion that the reason why Tottenham don't win enough trophies is because it's Daniel Levy's fault. I think Daniel Levy is partially responsible for he's a bottleneck on our own ambitions within the club. But for Tottenham or anyone else to win a trophy, you know, everyone else has to lose. And when you're competing against nation states or otherwise that are scratching each other's backs and that are spending more time figuring out loopholes and ways to jump through the rules or around them than actually abiding by them, then it's an uphill battle. And to me, the biggest problem why 92% of all trophies goes in the same 5 hands every year, or at least for the last 25. I know that this year's been a bit different in that Tottenham have won 1 Palace. And
Newcastle, isn't it, this year?
Yeah, but I think this is the anomaly. I don't think this is the new norm. I think this is just an exception. And I think that, like, the reason why that there's just not enough sort of distribution of success like there used to be is because of 2 reasons, really. Money in football, obscene money coming in that have a different relationship with money than businessmen, people with, you know, more money in the ground than has ever been printed in the history of mankind, coming in with just a different relationship and ambitions to just do whatever they want. When Jurgen Klopp said Newcastle United and Liverpool and Manchester City have no ceiling and every other club has a ceiling, like, it is what it is. Like, it is what it is. Get on board it. Like, he was right. And, you know, I just feel like the biggest problem in football is the inability for lawmakers to figure out coherent rules that can't allow for this. I'm not calling it cheating, because it's not cheating. They're just smart minds. They're smart people that know how to work out the laws, right?
Well, we look. I think football fans have had enough now, right? We want a decision on Man City. let's clear the air. Let's start again, and let's see the facts. I mean, as far as Chelsea concerned, just to quickly throw in the Chelsea thing, the fact that they're in the World Club Cup, right, is going to generate them 70, 80 million pounds potentially, if not more. I mean, it's huge money. It's more money than is available in the Champions League and winning the Champions League. So I think, you'll find that they're probably spending that money now, Chelsea and Manchester City. But I think we all need closure on the Manchester City fast now and find out what's going on. I think Leicester City are going to get done when they go back down into the Championship because they tried to get rid of. Thanks. It'd be an interesting one. Kobe May.
Why are they getting rid of that? He's like such a brilliant talent. Why are they getting rid of their best talent?
Look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with, who do we know? How do we know? Jim Ratcliffe might have pissed him off as well. But the thing is here, where are Chelsea storing all these players? Because they must have signed about 57 players.
Yeah. They got big yellow storage on subscription.
Where they are, I just don't know where they all are. I mean, you look at their bench signs 1 week and you see, oh look, and then hang on, where were they? Where have they been for the last 4 months? Just bring up some other kids. Loads of stuff.
On that article I brought up, I didn't say it, but they've got like 6 or 7 players returning from loan as well that are all handy. So. Yeah, look, fair play to. I mean, you sent me a list the other day, Johnny. If you want to call it out, we can go for another 5 minutes. About Manchester City's youth team. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. I'll let you go through it. But Chelsea are quietly going about doing the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah. Let me just get that list up. Hang on a second. Let me go get the list. So we were just looking at because. We were talking about McAtee and, someone said, oh, we don't want, Spurs fans were saying, we don't want their cast-offs. Why would we want Manchester City's cast-offs?
I'll tell you why. Because about 99% of them go on to be brilliant players.
Well, right. So here's a list. Here's just a few of the talent gravy train that's come out of Manchester City recently. Liam Delap, Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer, Jeremy Frimpong, James Trafford, the goalkeeper, Eric Garcia, who's at Barcelona, Tosin Adebayo, Angelino, Romeo Lavia, Alex Garcia, Michael Elise, Jadon Sancho, Ellis Sims, who's at Coventry, Douglas Luiz, who was at Villa, is now at Juventus, Pedro Porro, is another one.
Did you say Elise already?
I said Elise. Yeah, I've sent them all. So that is just, that's just the ones that I can think of at the moment. And, bearing in mind that they got players like Oscar Bob, who's been out a lot of the injury, Foden, Mamouche looks like he's going to be a player. And, McAtee, he's leaving. And so, a lot of fans will say, well, why, if he was good, exactly, a cast-off. Exactly.
Yeah, but that's like, of all of the credit you have to give to City for being able to nurture this talent, sell them all on with big sell-on fees, all that stuff. This one was their biggest mistake.
Yeah.
Cole Palmer is, I think, the best of all of those names that you pulled out there.
Well, Morgan Rogers, fantastic.
He's a class player as well. He's class.
Yeah. How do we know? Frimpong. Right, he's gone back to Liverpool. They produced Pedro Porro's a quality player. So they keep producing top talent. But there again, they've been paying for it, and they've been getting the money back. Whether or not they, their sell-ons they've been adding in and the buybacks.
Wow, is that right? Cheers, Blaine. Super chat from Blaine. Lads, in the last half hour, Inzaghi, according to TalkSport, has held talks with us and Newcastle. What the fuck? Why would Newcastle want to get rid of Eddie Howe? And if he does,
let's be honest.
I'll take Eddie Howe in a heartbeat. And Eddie in.
Let's be honest, right? Let's be honest.
Wow.
Don Fabio. Listen, let's be honest. Don Fabio, right? For fans who aren't Spurs fans, Fabio Paratici was the director of football for Juventus for 10 years. He left. He turned up at Spurs to an absolute shit show, absolute total mess. Got rid of Hitchin, totally ripped up our academy, completely turned it around, started recruiting top youth academy players, brought in the likes of Kulu, Bentancur, Romero, Vicario, Destiny Adogi, Papasar, could go on. And we all know that he got done for the corruption. He's been out. And since then, we've fallen away. But he's brought in, tried to bring in Nuno, brought in Conte. And I would not be surprised at all if he tries to bring in an Italian manager. I mean, I really wouldn't. I did mention to you Italiano, the Bologna manager, who I really liked.
German though, isn't he?
He's German. Yeah.
His
name's Italiano.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind that Gasparini. I know he's a bit old. He's 72, but he's very, very, very talented tactician. I'm not sure if he speaks English though, so probably
very 3 weeks at Spurs, he'd end up in a medical centre. So
not our medical centre, he'd never get out alive.
He won't get out. You go in there with an inward growing toenail and come out with a leg amputation. Yeah.
Wowzers. Yeah. Sorry. Gasparini's gone. Yeah, of course. Gasparini's gone to Roma, hasn't he? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Cheers, hello. Appreciate that, mate. That's wild though. Blaine, thanks for the update, mate. Didn't know. Inzaghi, I thought he was going to Saudi for 25 million a year, and if so, but if he comes to Tottenham, I'd be happy. But if he goes to Newcastle and Eddie Howe's up for grabs, I'd bite your hand off for him.
Funny. Sean, I'll tell you what's funny. When I think was it Mourinho, I can't remember, or it might have been Nuno. I'm trying to remember which one it was now. But Eddie Howe was at Spurs as a guest. Yeah.
Right.
And people were talking, oh, do you see Eddie Howe's? And people were going, don't want him. It was after he left Bournemouth, right? And all Spurs fans were going, fuck it, we want him. I mean, like people are saying about Thomas Frank is exactly what they said about Eddie Howe. Oh, who's he ever managed? Bournemouth, right?
What's he ever done? What's he ever won? Never been in Europe. Yada, yada, yada.
What's he ever done? Right. Yeah. And then he goes to Newcastle and, Exactly.
Listen, I mean, he's the king of the shithousery, isn't he? He knows how to slow down the game. He knows how to set a team up. I've got so much respect for him. And I think if there's any truth to that from TalkSport, and you'd hope that TalkSport wouldn't be pumping out stories unless they had some sort of sources that were confirming it, then that's a really strange one because Newcastle's owners would never have done what they've done as quickly as they have if it wasn't for Eddie Howe. So that's wild. But, mate, listen, it's probably a brilliant time to round off. And I want to say massive thank you to everyone that's been here. Honestly, I think this is the first time we've seen a load of fans from like not from Tottenham stuff. So I want to say a massive thank you to you guys. Really appreciate it if you subscribe and come back on tomorrow's show.
And let your friends know, let other people know in your groups, because we'll be doing these every day. We'll be doing these streams and short update videos of any story that obviously breaks. And we're delighted to have you on board. So great. And then hit the subscribe button and hit the comments, guys. All helps the algorithm and helps the channel grow. And we should be flying soon enough. We're already at about 1,200. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks, Lebo.
Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and comment. As always. Bye-bye.